Okay. Hey guys, whoever is in the chat. I hope that everything works. If you can hear music and if you can hear me, then maybe like say something, please. Because I don't think I will have the chance to really check. I guess my wife is gonna be looking at this and maybe she will message me if something is wrong. But in general, if there is anything wrong with the stream, let's say the music is too loud or not high enough or something, just let me know and I'll try to fix it, because this is the first time I'm using this setup, right? But in general, good afternoon everybody. This is gonna be the first stream. Actually, I'm going to be looking at in that camera, I suppose. Give me a sec, not into the other one. So this is gonna be the first stream, and the idea is that I'm going to be painting these guys. I have 3 of them, actually. I can see and hear you. That's reassuring, and thank you very much for the feedback about that. Awesome. So these guys are going to be the things we are painting today, the inner circle companions. At least that's the idea. And if you guys remember, I already, some time ago, I guess, I painted this guy, right? And there's another one like this. So I thought it would be cool to also have the inner circle companions, and then at some point, maybe I will actually build and paint the lion as well. And then these guys would look really cool next to him. Oh, is he gonna stand there? There we go. Awesome. So the way this is gonna work is that the stream is going to go on, and then somebody says, on my mobile phone I don't hear you a lot, but okay. Okay. I hope that's the phone and not my stream, but if it is my stream, then let me know. You can watch the stream, and then after the stream ended, I'm gonna put this on private for a while, let it process basically, and then it's gonna be available for people who subscribe to that specific tier, the commander tier on Patreon. This is how it's gonna go. But hopefully I will not forget to record all of this as well on my camera, so there's going to be separate footage for these guys, and then at some point there might be a YouTube video about them, like a normal one, right, as well. But this stream is going to be, I think, very interesting, because this way I can actually talk to you guys and explain what I'm doing. You can ask me questions, and let me just show you. Hopefully I will be able to even show you this thing. It looks really ugly, but it's actually clean, believe it or not. It's just the old paint and everything, and I used to have like copper wires under it, and that's why it's so ugly looking, but it's clean, and you guys will be able to see me reaching for this, and how I move my brush and how I clean my paints. So hopefully that will be helpful as well. Right, exactly, there we go. So going back to here, and I even have a Steam Deck, not a Steam Deck, a Stream Deck, a Stream Deck here as well, so I have to get used to using that as well to switch between the scenes. So for example, I could do this, and you can see me like, oh shit, it's big, or our main, and there is also painting right here. So this would be the normal painting thing, because when I start using this thing, right, it's gonna get really dorky, right? And I'm to show you guys don't want to look at me while I'm doing that. But this is necessary. So if you don't use one of these, I seriously recommend getting one, because without that, it's really difficult to do really intricate work, I suppose. Somebody says, nice, I'm going to paint my inner circle companion soon. That's really lucky, I suppose. That's great. Can you brighten the painting area a bit? Can I do that? Like, I'm not sure if it's... is it too dark, or is it just that these guys are very, very black at the moment? But I can. Give me a sec. I'll try to... something about... Okay. I think this is as high as it's gonna go. For now, at least. Like so. Like so, but I need to also see the monitor. So, oops, this is maybe a bit too much. Ooh. This is gonna take some adjusting, I suppose. Right? it's darker than the face cam. Yeah, I guess that's gonna be true because the face cam, you know, it's basically like I'm staring into this huge overhead light, which is also illuminating all of this. That's a problem with streams. Like, I suppose I need to figure this out more, but I used to stream doing gameplay, like PC games, and that's not an issue there. But here, you have this really bright area that I need to see myself, right? And at the same time, my face is gonna be illuminated like crazy. So what I can do is I can lower the face cam, I suppose, a little bit. Give me a sec. So I can lower this like that. Hopefully that did something. Does it do something? Let me check. Yeah, maybe it's not so distracting. I'm not sure if I actually changed something or not. Yeah. Wait, that's can't be right. Ah, okay, never mind. I actually switched. Oh, there you go. I can actually do this. Does this help? I just realized that I can do this. And at the same time, maybe I can like do... Ooh, that was maybe a mistake. Sorry, I'm fiddling with this now. Like so. Yeah. There we go. I think that's gonna be the best we can do for now, and then let's see how it goes after that. Okay, right. So let's start looking into this paint job a little bit. So the idea here, by the way, I prepared a little bit as well, so that it's a bit easier. The idea was that I wanted to paint him with, actually all three of them, right? With something like this, like a combination of these three colors. And that's going to be for the ropes, because we are going to be starting with the purple ropes. And once we are done with that, I will probably use something like these, because I wanted to try these out. I haven't really had the chance to play a lot with these inks from Ionic. So I thought I can give this a shot and see if we can modify the color once the highlights are on, right? And then we will see how it goes. And we might or might not use an airbrush for that. We shall see, because I also wanted to try how it is when I turn on the compressor. Because I have the cylinder here, so I could just use it at any time. But it's under the table, and it's not super loud, but I'm not sure how the microphone is gonna play with that, right? And I have been using this airbrush a lot lately. I was painting a bust. I'm not gonna show you just yet because it's not even halfway finished. But I was using this. This is coming from this interesting collector's box that Gaahleri sent me, and I was like, I'm not even gonna touch those guys because they are so cool, these airbrushes. But then what's the point, right? If you don't use them, then they're just not even existing really, right? So I started using it, and it's really cool. It has a 0.2mm nozzle. So maybe we'll use that to shade the Mini in the end a little bit. Okay. So we are going to be painting three guys at the same time, which is going to take some time, but maybe that's actually a good thing for us. And I'm going to be using an interesting thing here as well. You will see me use this in one of the next projects on YouTube. These weird, you can probably see this like a wedged shape, right? A brush. And this was sent to me by Golden Maple to try them out. Like half the box is like these wedge-shaped guys, and then there's the normal ones. And these are actually pretty good for base coating and like larger surfaces in a way. So we'll start with that because you know it's kind of like big, and it has a lot of like capacity. At the same time, it has a really good tip as well. So it's easy to reach stuff with it, but it also has enough to really cover, which is nice. And then we can switch to normal rounded brushes after this one. At least that's the plan. And yeah, I have this like crease here, which is annoying. But when I built these guys, I didn't really care about that too much, so we'll just use them like this. This is not going to be on a competition anyway, right? Okay. You are going to be probably hearing this a lot when I'm cleaning my brush, so I hope that's not going to be annoying. And let's start with the purple first, I suppose. You're going to be like doing, well, I'm gonna show it to you like this. Like usually when I start painting, I go like this, like slamming it against my palm, because that like dislodges the paint from the bottom a little bit, and that's good for any bottle, not just Ionic. So it's a good idea to do this. And then we can put some on the wet palette, and I'm gonna switch to the other thing. But this is where I put the thing. Let's see how that looks on the big screen actually. Just right. Have you been on Contrast Festival this year? No, I haven't. I'm not sure I know what Contrast Festival is. Maybe I should look that up. Where is that? Which country? All right. Let's start by applying this color. Okay. So I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit as well, because I see a lot of people on Reddit and Instagram and places like that having trouble with base coats. And I'm not sure why that is the case, because if you're using a wet palette like this, and you can see me just like doing this and immediately just applying it. And I don't really care too much about how I apply it. The only thing I care about is that I don't touch the area that I already applied the paint on, because then I would like create this texture. I disturb it while it's drying. So as long as I don't do that, it's fine. And I can do whatever, because the paint is self-leveling, so you just leave it be and it's gonna even itself out, basically. So there's not much thought that needs to go into base coating. I add a little bit of water plus whatever it is soaking up from the wet palette, and then I just basically paint it on. Nothing super special about it. Once again, like the only thing is that it doesn't matter if the first layer covers or not. I'm not gonna go back and start doing this again. All right. It's in Poland. Oh, okay. That's relatively close to me. I'm in Hungary, but I haven't heard about it yet. Maybe I should. I assume it's a yearly thing, right? So maybe I'll look it up and see. One of these days I could go there. That would be cool. I have been to a couple of events, but not a lot actually when it comes to painting. Oop, I tend to, like, whenever I do this, just let me know, because I tend to move the thing around, and that's a really annoying thing that I do even if I record for normal footage. I tend to just take the mini out of focus, unfortunately, and out of frame. So let's see, this is still the robe, like here, right, like there, and here as well. Yeah. And by the way, we are going to make this, like, or these guys rather, not just this guy, but these guys, I mean, not the highest level, I suppose, but it's definitely not going to be just tabletop level. So we will try to go for, or I'm going to try to go for something relatively nice, but not like display quality nice, so something that kind of goes together with that Terminator that I showed you. That is not really like standing out of that kind of category, and then maybe the lion is going to be a bit more fancy. It's not a big deal if I paint over that thing, like there. Like, you can probably see it here, because one, I can just like do this if I really want to. Because I know that a lot of people are afraid of like going over an area that that should not be painted, right? But you don't have to do, like, you don't have to be afraid of that. You can just wipe it away easily, and then you just wipe it on the paper towel, like so. Or you can just leave it, and we're going to paint it black once again once I'm finished with the ropes. But there we go. It's relatively good for a first coat. Like that's actually supposed to be green, I suppose, in the end. I looked at the picture of the key art before I started, actually, and just to give myself a little bit of a idea of what I'm painting here. Oh, and there's also the hood, right? We need to make the hood also purple. Right, something like that. I need to get used to this thing, like, moving. I was trying out this new handle that I got from Red Guys Games. I had 2 of these before, but now I have 3. That's perfectly matched for these guys. So I was like, okay, this is a good opportunity. So honestly, like, this one layer is not bad already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply one more layer, but I'm going to only apply that one layer in places where I think I will have the highlights. So we are already doing a little bit of highlighting, in a sense, not much, just a little bit. Another thing to consider, oops, there is also a place here. It should be probably also purple, and here. Right. So another thing to consider is also where to start. And I started with the ropes. Now that's like a middle of the road solution in a way, because usually you are supposed to be starting from the deepest part of the model. And why is that? Because that way you can reach it without hitting anything else, and if you do hit something, then as you just saw, you can just wipe it away, right? Whereas if you do something deep, like for example this part, later there's a chance that you can hit something that is already painted around it, and that's not great, right? And yet I'm still starting with the ropes, and I start with the ropes because this cream look, I think it's gonna be cream later, this fabric here, it's not big, and I don't like to start with really small elements. So I decided to go with the ropes that is kind of in between that and most of the green armor, right? And most of these things actually are relatively easy to reach, even if I painted around them, so I am not that bothered about it. But in general, when you do this kind of stuff, it's a good idea to start with the thing that is basically the innermost thing, the thing that is the hardest to reach. But we don't really care about that right now. Like so. I'm not gonna paint that because that's in shadow, so it's gonna be a bit darker. I'll still paint this. And I'm gonna paint here. Like so. Okay. And then a little bit here because it's not really purple the way I painted it. There we go. And the hood is a little bit still wet, you can see it glistening like there, so I'm not gonna touch that for now. We're going to move on to the next guy. I have to be careful, by the way, because these things, like, see, they attract each other, so it's really nice because I can just put it somewhere where it's magnetic and I can just store it there, but they really like each other, so I need to be careful not to put them too close to each other. Which is definitely going to happen, by the way, at some point during the stream, just so you know. And I definitely did not put enough paint on the palette, so we're going to add some more. Right. So now we're going to just do the same thing on the other 2 models as well. Okay. And I could have started very differently as well, by the way. I could have started with a zenithal highlight, right? And I used to like that solution quite a bit. But lately I'm not using it that much for various reasons. I use it when I really want brightness most of the time, but even then you can just build up the brightness. And building up something, so I basically like to do two different techniques these days. One is what I'm doing here, when I start from black, and then I just brighten it up bit by bit until I get to the highest points which I want to reach, which might not be close to white, by the way, but it might be. And this gives me a lot of control. It's not the most friendly approach to saturation sometimes, depending on what you're painting, especially not on the first couple of layers. But this works really well because it's really easy to see where we are going, and we are going like bit by bit, like slowly. Like I can change my color choices easily. It's very obvious where I'm going with this. So for me, this is like the most comfortable painting technique, let's say, or method. But there is another one which I really like these days. Oops. Which is to go mid-tone, basically what you would do for Games Workshop painting methods, like the heavy metal one, because that's also something that you just go for the mid-tone and then you shade down and then you highlight up, right? So that version, but instead of doing what they do and just go with washes or something, instead you immediately start highlighting. And then you rely on the airbrush to smooth things out and shade down, which is really, really cool and really fast. The problem with that is that a lot of people don't like the airbrush for whatever reason, and the other one is that I'm not as comfortable with it just yet as I am with this, so what I get is not always exactly what I envisioned, right? But that's just a matter of experience, I suppose. Okay, so this needs to be purple as well, like here. Okay. And then obviously the other thing is like the color choices that you make is also very interesting whichever technique you use, right? Because I went for this, what is it called actually? Purple. It's pretty dark purple actually. I'm not sure. Ryan's Kirby says, "Oh, what up, gamer? I didn't know you streamed." I don't, or I didn't rather, but now I do. Right? This is the first one, so welcome to the first stream. So basically, this is a pretty dark purple, but with 2 layers on, it's not gonna be the darkest. So we are not gonna go from a really dark shadow tone and then layer it up, because I just don't have that tone that I wanted in Ionic, and I wanted to use Ionic for this because I'm still getting comfortable with this paint range and I'm really getting the hang of it, I think, but I still need to try out a lot of different paints, like purple, for example. And I was like, okay, so I don't have that dark purple, I don't want to mix things right now, so I'm just gonna go with this, and then we start highlighting, and we will do something about the shadows in the end, right? So like, you don't have to always go in a straight line. Sometimes you can go back and darken things down. It's not a big deal, right? It's much easier if you're a bit more flexible with these kind of things. It's just a good idea to have some kind of starting point and some kind of idea, at least in the beginning. Like, I usually have a plan. Like for example, actually I'm gonna show you. Like I showed you already what I wanted to use for the purple tones, right? But like, see, I wanted to use these for the cream colored ropes, the fabrics, and then maybe something like, oops, almost let it fall, something like this, and a little bit of this, believe it or not, for the green. So that's the plan, but I'm sure I'm gonna change that plan while I'm doing it. It never really survives contact with the enemy, in my experience. I actually picked up the entire Ionic Smart Color range, the entire one, wow, okay, about a month ago, and I'm glad to see you using it too. It will make it a lot easier to follow your tutorials. That's awesome, actually. A lot of people tell me this, by the way. Like, I think a lot of people are realizing that, I think especially people who liked or like AK paints will definitely like Ionic paints as well. They're basically, for me at least, they're basically like AK, but they are more colorful, which is awesome, right? Because I really love the way AK works. It's just that the colors are sometimes not as cool as I would want them to be. Sometimes they are. And the color punch line is really good, I think. I need to get more of those. But Ionic is great. Do you plan to exchange AK 3rd gen fully with Ionic? No, not really, I think. Like, the way I usually do things is I like to mix and match. I know that like my viewers are not necessarily into that. That's why I'm trying to restrain myself. Right? Because people who have AK obviously don't like me using other paints, and whoever has Ionic also wants to use Ionic and so forth. But it's the best way to do this, if you can, obviously, and you have the choice, then you use the paints that you are more comfortable with. Like, for example, let's say you really like paints for base coating, and let's say you go for AK for that one, because they cover really well. Oh, I thought that there's some kind of something on there, but there is not. But then for, let's say, edge highlighting, you want to go for something else, I don't know. Or if you want to go for the highlights, you want to go for colors, so you go for Green Stuff World, but then you switch back to the edge highlights to, let's say, Ionic or something like that, because Green Stuff World is not great with edge highlights because it's very fluid, right? So if you have the chance, it's nice to experiment and mix and match different brands, because each brand has their own kind of strengths and weaknesses, I guess. Like Ionic, that's the nice thing about Ionic, that Ionic kind of does most of the stuff really well, right? Like it's almost as saturated as Green Stuff World, but it's just as nice, almost as nice in covering as AK, and then just as good for edge highlights as AK, and so forth, right? So if I wanted to go for one brand right now and I had the choice of all of my paints, then I would go for I don't have as many Ionic paints as AK paints, that's the thing. But in general, I would go for Ionic. But if I have the chance to use multiple, then I would go with I think the top 3 that I had in that video. If you watch that video, my favorite paint ranges video. So basically AK, Ionic, and Green Stuff World, those 3 ranges allow me to basically do anything and everything, and in a way that's oh wait, what is this? Oh, there we go. So in a way that's easy, right? I don't have to, like, for example, I can do edge highlights with Green Stuff World, of course. It's just not as easy, right? And I can do saturation with AK. It's just, it requires a bit more work and thought. But if you use the right paint for the right brand for the right job, then you just make your life much easier. You don't have to work so hard. And someone who paints as much as me, I think would appreciate that kind of flexibility. Yeah, sorry, that was a long rambling answer to, no, I don't want to replace completely, but I think definitely Ionic became one of my prime brands to use. Do you have some tips on rough metal in non-metallic metal, like it has not that shiny surface? Yeah, that's tricky actually, right? Funnily enough, like shiny surface is easier than rough. I guess also because people, like, there's more examples of that. So I did a couple of those. For example, let me look around. I think, yeah, the Megatkin army that I painted, or like the diorama that I painted, has a lot of those. There is also another diorama, funnily enough, I always do this on dioramas. There is the Flesh Eater Quartz diorama that also has a lot of rough metals that look like, you know, corroded and dark and this kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that, there are guides on Patreon and videos on YouTube about that kind of stuff. But definitely it's more difficult to do that, I think. And it requires a little bit of a different approach than normal shiny metals. Desaturated and less vibrant, I mean. Sorry, I love this vibrancy. Ah, sorry, I didn't read the first comment. So I love the vibrancy. Actually, I'm only searching for other paints if I want something that is desaturated and less vibrant, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I agree. There are a couple of paints that can be even more vibrant out of the box or out of the bottle than Ionic. Green Stop World, I think, is one of those, some of the paints. Color Punch can be really vibrant from AK. Chimera Colors can be really vibrant as well. But yeah, like Ionic is definitely really on the vibrant side, which is good. Okay, there we go. Another thing that I was thinking was that I would be using AK still a lot more for like non-metallics, because of how many like gray tones and like interesting gray tones I have, right? Because it's like you cannot just paint non-metallic metal, like, so there's definitely more colors involved, right, than just gray, but the basis usually is some kind of gray when you paint steel or something like that. And I'm just gonna go on with another layer here. And I had a lot of different interesting like greenish, purplish and whatnot, like AK colors that I used for that. But I also bought a lot of Ionic ones, and I also got a couple from the company. So I tried it out. You will see a couple of examples of that in future videos. I had a couple of projects that I did with Ionic, and I think like especially combining the two works really well for me as well. But yeah, I'm finding it hard to justify not using Ionic for stuff. That's the thing, because it's just good, right? It just works, which is great. Okay, now I just have to go back and apply one more layer to the hoods, I think. And then we can figure out how we are going to move forward. Because every time you introduce a new paint, or a new shade, new tone, that's a decision that we have to make, and it's gonna have some consequences, right? Okay. Am I happy with this? Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. So let's just do this as well. Especially the hoods are important, right? Because it's on the head. People are going to look at that a lot. So those need to be covered properly. Right. Okay. Maybe a little bit here. And there we go. There we go. So every time, by the way, that's another important thing. Like, what do you do with the brush when you do this kind of stuff, right? So I basically finished. I'm gonna show you first. I basically finished painting the base coats to these guys, and I forgot to press the record button on the camera. Oh man, that sucks. You know what? We're going to do a little trick just to get something. Crap. I need to, like, this is difficult, right? Because I usually have my process of how to do this on the camera, but then now I also have to look at the stream. So this is the color we're going to be using, right? And I'm just gonna apply one more layer just so I have some footage of that. Sorry guys. Just that the video needs to make sense at some point. Ah, no. Okay, there we go. Like that. I can apply as many layers as I want, really, right? Because this is very thin layers. I'm not gonna do any harm to the model or anything like that. I'm just gonna use this. So basically the idea would be that I record footage for all of the different stages, including showing the paint and everything, so that I can show you guys in a YouTube video, or people who are not here, and to a certain extent at least should get a glimpse of what was going on here, right? So we're going to just quickly add one more layer. And then I'll show you what I wanted to show you with the brush. Like that. Okay, and then another one, like so. Just on in the places where the light would hit them the most. That we have perfect coverage there, even more than before. Even though I think it was fine with just 2 layers. Yeah, I'm going to do 3 layers now. How long have you been painting Warhammer? Actually, I think 2020. So basically since the pandemic. That's when I picked it up. Initially I was like, I didn't know that I would be so much into the painting side of things, but I really wanted to collect and paint and play possibly as well. Because back then I was in a situation where there were people around me who could play with me. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. But then I got so much into it because I realized that there is so much depth in it, that I really started going down the rabbit hole. You know, it's not like, first I just wanted to paint them kind of like army painting style, and then I started looking into more and more, watching a lot of videos, and then at some point I discovered like real, let's say real artists, people who are really good at this, like Sergio Calvo and Jose da Vinci and these kind of guys initially, and then a lot of others later on, and then, well, this is where we ended up, I suppose. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys what I do with the brush. Like, this is very important. I know that a lot of people are interested in how to take care of the brush, and every time you finish something, and sometimes even in between steps, right, I always clean my brush, and that goes basically like, here's a cup. Okay, I do this kind of thing. It's like, it's making it a little bit here to the side of the cup, right? And then I go and use the paper towel to dry it off, and always in a circular motion, like in a way that maintains the tip. And then, especially between steps, I also have this really ugly piece of brush soap, and like, as you can see, I've been using this for a long time. I think for like 4 years at least, or something like that. So what you do is you basically just like do this, apply a little bit on it, right? And then you shape it a little bit and make sure that everything gets out of the ferrule, but like obviously just gently, right? And then you can use the crease in your palm to make it really nice and sharp. And I do this every time, right? I basically every 20 minutes at least, even if I'm painting the same thing, I will do this. I will clean the brush and make sure that nothing dries in the ferrule, and I will do this step, and then I just keep painting again. I will just like wash it off again, once again, like this motion here. Not sure if it's visible, but basically like this motion, this circular motion to make it nice and sharp, and I just keep painting with it. But like, this is the most important thing to actually get nice results, I think. This and the magnifying glasses, that helps a lot. Like, maintaining your brushes in a nice and sharp state, that's basically the absolute basics, and without that you won't be able to paint anything nice, that's for sure. Right. Okay, so we've managed to do this, so I'm gonna show this to the camera like so. Oh, it's nice that I can do this, it's cool. See, that's a nice layer, it's fine. This is our first layer on the purple. Put this down, turn off the camera, and now we are going to discuss what we are going to do next, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage in a little bit of paint mixing. So purple and magenta together, I think, is gonna be the next layer for us. I don't want to do, like, I don't want to go super bright on these guys, but what I could do we want to do some texture on these? Maybe. You know, the way I did the watchers on the diorama with the Ezreal diorama, I think. Let me get that. Let me see. You want to do something like that. So like that. All right? Something like that. Maybe we will go and do something like that. So instead of just a very smooth fabric, we could make it look like it's actually a textile, something real, right? And the colors are going to be different, obviously, because I'm using very different paints here. But the idea is the same, that I will brighten it up first with magenta and then with something yellowish, so like vanilla or something like that. Maybe not vanilla, maybe I will go with something like a skin tone, possibly. Can I? Okay. So like this progression, something like that. Because the idea is that you could do this, right? I mean, okay, ivory is mostly just white with a little bit of yellow in it. If I did this, it's gonna get desaturated, right? Even with ivory, because you would think that this has a little bit of yellow in it, but it's minuscule, right? It's not significant. So it's just gonna make things very desaturated. But if I'm gonna this aside so that I don't accidentally use that. But if I add this, because we don't really want to go super bright, right? Like a fabric doesn't need to be reaching a white in the highlight. So we are going to go with this, and probably not even pure this. We just like mix it in with those, and that will create a much more warmer and much not brighter, but like something that is much more brilliant in the end. At least that's the plan, and then we will see how it goes, right? Okay. So, but first, let's just start with the magenta, and we are going to add this to the purple. Were you a trained artist before you started painting miniatures? Not at all. Hell no, no. I have zero idea about art. Well, at least I had zero idea about art before I started painting minis. Let me do I have a... Give me a sec. No, I don't. Okay. That's a reminder for me to put a Stream Deck shortcut for the wet palette. But painting. Here we go. So no, I definitely was not a trained artist at all. Believe it or not, I actually studied. I have a master's degree in literature and linguistics. So nothing could be closer than... I mean, okay, maybe there are some things that are even further away from miniature painting and art than this, but it's not very close, that's for sure. I painted an Emperor's Children Lord Exaltant the other day and loved the magic purple and magentas for it. It was really happy with the result. Okay, that sounds cool. I think like painting with purples and magentas and everything, at least for me, it's a lot of fun. These are fun colors. It's like you can get a lot of saturation, a lot of really vibrant colors with this, but you can also desaturate it a lot. Right, we might actually add a little bit more magenta to this because it's a bit too sameish. Like so. Okay, now we are talking. Now we are talking. Oh, I forgot the... maybe with this we are not gonna do the texture just yet. I think now we're just gonna highlight a little bit first. Ah, crap. And I forgot. Okay, this... I need to get used to this. I really need to get used to this. Once again, I didn't actually press record on the camera. So let me just show... But at least now I caught it early enough, right? I'm gonna show... These are the two colors that we're using. Like so. And I actually might even put on the glasses now. But I can see what I'm doing better, even though I see it quite nicely still, but it's easier if I actually see it even closer up. We're going to do this like so. Like see, I'm not painting the whole surface now. I'm just painting the parts that I think are going to be hit by the light a little bit, and that usually means stuff that is further up and whatever is pointing up towards the light. For example, let me just do this. Like, see these folds here? these things. Like this part, the raised part, it looks up, right? Like it goes like that. And same here, like so. Oops, like so. But that bit, that is actually pointing down, right? So that's not gonna be as bright, so we are just going to leave it. And that's it. That's basically the big secret, right? Like finding these spots and figuring out which parts are pointing which way, believe it or not. That's a big part of painting nice looking minis. It's actually easier. Like for example here, like look, like it's this part here. This looks towards the top, right? It looks up. But this bit here, I'm not gonna paint it. We can do maybe like a couple little textures, like so. See? Like that bit is in shadow, right? First of all, the purity seal is above it, and also it's kind of pointing, well, kind of down. Like obviously, like if I do it like this, it points up, but it points kind of like this, right? So whatever is coming up from the ground is gonna be reflecting on it, not the one that is coming from right from the sun or whatever the light source is. And that's it. And then here we could actually go and make this a bit lighter, because it kind of catches some light here, but this part, it's in shadow, right? So something like that. Am I right with this assessment? Maybe some people would disagree, but I think it's gonna look good, right? And that's the other part, that it's actually, it's not an exact science. It's relatively subjective where you put these highlights. As long as you create some relatively believable highlights, it's gonna be fine. The better you are at it and the smoother you are, and the more little tricks and whatnot you know, the better the end result is gonna look. Actually, there is another thing here, like this fold, this is what I'm always talking about. This fold, you can even see it on the camera, I think, that the light is reflecting in the middle of it, right? So it's like this should actually be highlighted, like so. But this, not so much, right? Like this is actually, if you look at it like that, it's gonna be in shadow, right? So we are going to leave it darker. Something like that. And it's easier if you build it up like this, going slowly higher up in brightness. Because even if you make a mistake, you can correct it easily because you're not jumping too high. Like so. There you go. How much of your talent is innate versus acquired? Could you sketch well as a kid? I liked to paint, I mean not paint, like draw, I guess, as a kid. I wasn't particularly good at it, I was just copying stuff from comic books and things like that. But like if you ask me, at least, obviously people will disagree with me, but there is obviously such a thing as innate talent, I think, but much less than you would think. Right? I think that most people so basically, to the extent that I can do this, I think anybody can. Right? This is not like, oh my god, I'm talented or something. Not even close. This is just knowledge, right? Like and a lot of practice. That's another thing. It just comes down to whether you are interested in this. Like for example, if you're painting for army painting, let's say. Right, and this is just a chore for you. You don't really care about it too much, and you don't care for it too much either. You don't want to really do that. Like you just have to because you want to have. Oh, there's a little thing there. Give me a sec. Just grab that because it's gonna be stuck there. So there you go. If you don't care about it and you just do it because you must, because you need to have an army that is painted to a certain degree, right? Then you are not going to pay attention to it, you're not going to be invested in it, and you're not going to really learn, right? You're just gonna, obviously you're going to be somewhat better at it because you get the, I guess the brush handling part a little bit, like you are going to be more sure-handed and stuff like that. But if you're not actively engaging with it, and you are not actively trying to learn it, then you're not going to really improve, right? But if you really want to, because this is, oh my god, I really want to paint better minis, and I actively try to get better. I look at videos, I paint minis, I try new techniques, I constantly am trying to better myself. I'm still pretty sure that there is something there. Crap. then you are going to definitely get better, right? And you can absolutely, oh, there we go. You can absolutely get to the level that I am at, for sure, without any issues, completely independent of your talent, right? I think, at least. I never felt particularly talented when it comes to art. But I think that's mostly true for everything else as well. I think your willingness to learn and how much you are investing in it is way more important, at least from my perspective, than innate talent. So this is just me painting a lot, right, and caring a lot about what I paint. Yeah. We are getting there, But this is just the first layer, obviously. I need to go a little bit further out, just like this. I think for the next layer, we are going to start doing the scratches a bit more. And for that, I'm going to be switching to a different brush. But for now, this looks pretty well for what I wanted, I think. So, like, see, like this part is gonna be absolutely covered, right? Because it's completely going up. And then, okay, and then this part honestly is mostly gonna be covered as well, because I imagine the light is coming from like here, right? But then this bit here is going to be less covered because it's on the other side. And I know that I always say this in the videos, but that's another very important thing, like figuring out where the light is actually coming from. And oh, I didn't actually paint this bit. Yeah, okay. Because even if you just say that the light is coming from here, right? It's like right from the top. That's already helpful, because that helps you visualize where the light would hit certain parts of the model. But in my experience, I always say that you are better off if the light is not coming right from the top. Right? I think it's much more dramatic, I guess, or something like that, if it's coming from one of the sides. Personally, for myself, I always go from this side, right, from the right, because it's easier for me to do. Because I'm right-handed, so I tend to paint this side better than this side, right? Maybe that's why, I'm not sure, but I usually do it like this. And the reason why this is better is because you will see later that this way you can actually create contrast between the sides. Right? Obviously you are creating contrast between the shadow and the light sides, and that's gonna be like the bottom is gonna be darker than the top always on the model, right? Or like almost always. But you can also make it so that the bottom is darker than the top, and then the right side is brighter than the left side. And the two together is more than just the one, right? If that makes any sense. So that's why I like to make it so that the light is hitting the model from one side. And by the way, that's another interesting thing. There's so many things I could talk about it, or that I talk about, because these are the topics that I always see people complain about, like all these highlighted models, especially the non-metallic metals. You know, it's you can only paint it from one angle, and then all the rest of the angles are going to look like shit. And that's like, what? No, that's not how it works. Like, this is the main angle, right? This is how you look at the model if you take a picture of it or something like that. So obviously you're going to paint it like, okay, the light is coming from this side, so I'm gonna this, and this is gonna be, you know, like you actually make it so that it looks good from the front. And then obviously you're going to turn the model around. Okay, now I don't see anything from the front, but this still needs to make sense. So now I can do it in a way that the light is coming from here, right, and here, and that is in in shadow because the light is coming from this direction, right? Same here, like actually this side will catch the light a little bit more, and so forth, right? Like this. So now we cover this side and that side, but usually you also want to do this, and then because this side angle you don't see from the front mostly, right? So you are also going to be like this, because the light is coming from here. Same here, great. And now we are doing the left side, or the right side from his perspective, right? And now the light is obviously, it's coming from here, so you can do it, you can be fancy and say that, okay, this side is going to be darker than that side. Or you can be like, whoever looks at it from this side is not going to see the other side anyway, so I might just make it so that the light is coming from here now. I'm basically cheating, right? So then I'm gonna be like, okay, this part is gonna be light, and this part like so, and a little bit here, that's gonna be mostly in shadow here. I don't care about that. And then obviously this is gonna be painted. And there you go. So basically what you're doing is you're painting the model from 4 different sides, and this whole, the light is coming from over his left shoulder thing, works really well from the front, from his left, right? And from the back, and then from the right side you can either cheat like I did, or you can just make this side ultimately just darker than everything else, right? And then you have this kind of like consistency. And there you go, right? So that's how it works. It's not like if you paint volumetric highlights and non-metallic metal, then the model can only be viewed from one angle. Actually, the model can be viewed from like 4 different angles most of the time, right? It's just a pet peeve of mine when I see this, this complaint or something. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing for the other 3 dudes as well. And sorry guys, if this is like going relatively slow, I would be probably already painting some other material on these guys. I'm just slower because I'm explaining stuff, and I think this is a great opportunity for me to just talk about stuff that sometimes I just don't have the space for in a sense, or the time for in the video. Because, and also, like, it might not come to me when I talk about it. It was like I was thinking about it when I was painting it, and that's always a problem for me, right? So now that I can do both, I can talk about it at the same time that I'm painting it. This way, I suppose I can come up with topics that are relevant to that particular part of the painting process. So this is gonna be completely covered. This is gonna be like so. Right. And you can also see that like it's relatively smooth, right? I'm not making any, I'm not glazing, I'm not doing anything fancy here. I'm just adding another layer, and yet it's not like it's like not smooth or something. It's smooth because I mixed the same color into the new color that I was already using. So that already kind of creates this connection between the previous layer and this layer. And also I didn't jump really high in brightness. If I did, obviously this difference between the 2 layers would be harsher. But even like this, you can already see a little bit of volume on the model, right? Even after this one thing, and even with the first layer I already did like 2 layers, and the second layer only went on the light side. And so this is one way of making sure that you don't have to glaze and do stuff like that a lot. You can just build it up slowly and avoid big jumps, basically. Right. And you can see that I'm constantly mixing the same color over and over again. If there's a little bit of difference between how bright it is, it doesn't really matter. We are going to be mixing more in anyway soon, so that's fine. Okay. Okay. And here. This is good, even better than shorter form vids, because the true magic comes from the deeper thoughts that only occur when you ramble. Exactly. And I do love to ramble. You will see. You will see. I do love to ramble. But I also have a lot of thoughts about this. Right? It's like There is a lot of misconception, I think, about painting. And I think sometimes it's really difficult. It's not because like YouTubers in general don't want to teach you or can't teach you, but even I think it's true for me as well. It's just difficult sometimes to put things into like very short videos, because people don't really want to watch like 40-50 minute videos, I suppose, at least in my experience. And if you want to be concise, then that also means that you just can't. It's very difficult to explain concepts that are not. They're not that complex, really. It's just that it needs to click with you, right? Like somehow somebody needs to either show you properly or needs to really explain it in a way that's, I think, that you visually need to understand. And once it clicks, once you realize it, then it's easy. But until that point, if you keep doing it the wrong way, it's gonna look really difficult, right? Like edge highlights is one of those things. Blending, glazing, all of basically all the most important concepts. Like glazing is super easy. Like seriously, like glazing is super easy. It's just that people try to do it wrong. That's the problem. That's one thing, and the other thing is like it's time consuming and annoying sometimes, right? But you can also do it with an airbrush, right? You just need to understand the concept. And also you need to kind of get the muscle memory for it a little bit. So like brush control and how you use your brush, what consistency you use, is just as important as where you are putting the thing, where you are actually painting the paint. So now you might actually be able to see that I have this like little thing at the end of the brush. It's a bit dry, which we're going to remove. And that's why it's always important to clean your brush. Okay. We're getting there, we're getting there. I think here a little bit more. Okay, so just to give you an idea, these two, never mind, actually these two are now highlighted with this first layer, right? And this one is not. See the difference? So this one is just 2 layers of the original color, whereas these two actually have, let me just use one as an example, it's easier. So this one has the new magenta mix on it, and this one is just the base layers, right? See? It's pretty smooth, right? I didn't do anything to make it smooth. I just painted in a way that makes it not smooth, if that makes any sense. And I also didn't jump high in terms of brightness and color. So the difference between the two is not great, but it's already contributing. This one looks much more shaded and highlighted, much more volumetric in a sense than this one, right? So now we're going to push this one as well, and then we can move further. Do you teach lessons? I haven't done anything like that so far. I'm not sure if there is any like need for it, or like any people who would want that. But if there is such a thing, we can discuss it, I guess. I used to be a teacher, by the way, but teaching very different things. I was teaching English, believe it or not, for language exams. So I have a little bit of a teaching experience, but I have never taught mini painting so far. Like that, like so, a little bit here. Okay. So see, once again, like this. These bits are definitely, and then you can actually make like this happen as well. Like you can connect them a little bit with scratches. Right? So there's like 2 areas like this. Like this one is fully painted now. This one is fully painted here, and then there is this fold. It kind of looks a little bit down. And if you don't want to completely leave it dark, you can also just kind of do this. And this is one way to connect the two. Anyway, this especially works well in fabrics, in my experience. But here, like this one, I see this area here. This is gonna be completely dark because it's pointing completely down, but then this bit, it's pointing up. Same here. Alright? Something like that. And at the same time, I'm 100% sure that some people would paint this differently. Like, this is not an exact science. I don't think that everybody would be painting the folds exactly the same way. It's not like, you know, it's painting by numbers. Like, you know, that this needs this much paint, brightness, and so forth. And maybe there are people who have more experience, who are better at judging. Maybe they have more innate talent than me. Would place the highlights slightly differently. And oh crap, there's another little bit. I live with a lot of cats, so there's a lot of hair flying everywhere, by the way. Okay, so yeah, like, don't imagine that there is one exact way of doing it and you have to figure out what that way is. What you need to figure out is just one way that is good enough, basically, for what you want. I think, at least in my experience, that helps. Alright. So don't beat yourself up if like Erik Swinsson or somebody else would paint the fold slightly differently than how you did paint it. Like, maybe that's actually superior, sure. Doesn't mean that yours is bad. Right? But obviously Erik is much better at painting than I am, and most of us, right? So he probably knows better because he has a ton of experience as well. There you go. I'm not sure why I'm singling out Erik Swinsson. But I watched a couple of videos of his back in the day and I really liked it. Okay. Like so. Okay. Almost done. What's the time, by the way? Ooh, we have already been painting for an hour. That's crazy. That's crazy. Actually, I don't like. See, I don't like this. I think this is gonna go. I'm gonna feather this out a little bit because now it's a bit too bright. I'm feathering this out like this. So now it's darker, like so, because it's the side. Like, light is coming from here. Why should that be so bright? So instead, I'm gonna actually paint this side brighter. Right? Like so. Okay. And you can add multiple layers. You see me probably go back multiple times, adding a little bit of smaller layer one more time, making sure that the middle of the highlight, the place where I want the light to be the most, the brightest, is covered fully, right? Because if you're not covering it fully, it's not gonna look like a light. It's gonna still have the darker color shining through. That's not great. I really don't like this seam here, but man. I'm also very lazy when it comes to assembling these models sometimes. Assembling is not my favorite part of the hobby, for sure. Somebody could assemble the minis for me, that would be awesome. Okay, like that. Right, I think that's pretty much it. So see, once again, now I'm going to clean my brush before I do anything else, so that I don't forget. I'm gonna use the ugly soap. You can see that the purple color is coming out a little bit now. So I'm gonna squeeze it gently out like this. Then I'm gonna clean it on the paper towel. And then water again. Some more soap. Like so. Another reason why I'm doing it this thoroughly now is because I want to switch to another brush. So when I put this down, this needs to be in perfect condition and kind of shaped. Like, see? Now it's nice and sharp, even though this is like this weird wedged shaped brush, but the tip is still super sharp. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this aside like so, and let's take a look at what we actually achieved. This like so. Oh, this turns, but a bit more difficult than the other. Okay. Ooh, see, I actually made a mistake there. I can already see. I forgot to paint. Oh man. And I even decide the brush. Oh, wait. Actually, I didn't realize that my wife was telling me something. Sec. Volume is way too low, can't even hear the music, she says. Can somebody confirm, is this true? Like, is the volume too low? In the meantime, I'm just gonna quickly fix this part here. For example, there is supposed to be some music. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it. Or is it just my voice that you hear? Because I can definitely increase the volume a little bit. You know what? I'm just gonna do that anyway. Hope for the best. So. So the voice is good. Music could be a little too loud, or is it that it could be louder? I'm gonna be like this. Let's see how that goes. Okay, right. So I'm gonna clean the brush again. Just a little bit. It's really important, you can't skimp on this. Like, you have to clean the brush every single time you paint with it. Okay, and now we're going to switch to a normal brush, not this one. Relatively large one, compared to the models at least, but very sharp one. Like so. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to combine the three colors. So now I'm gonna switch off the thing again. And then I'm gonna switch it on again. Sorry guys, I'm just doing some recording for the eventual YouTube video again. So what we're going to do is now we're going to use all three of these colors. The purple, the magenta, and not this one. Sorry, this was just my original idea. Music is too loud. So okay, then maybe I should not increase it further. Don't worry, I'm not an English speaker myself, or at least I'm not a native English speaker. So don't worry about the English. Now if I just understood... Huh? Sorry guys if I'm making this weird. Hopefully now it's fine. Maybe if my wife is still listening, she can confirm that it's good enough. Okay. So the idea is that purple, magenta, and this light golden flash is gonna be the the new highlight color. And I will try to do some kind of, not crazy, but some texturing on the highlights to make it look like this is some kind of cloth or fabric. So what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of do another area here where I'm going to be mixing these. I'm going to use the dark color because I still have plenty of that. And then I'm gonna, oops, that sounds weird. Like I'm gonna do some light golden flash here. Not a lot, like so. And let's try to figure out this color that I want to use. So I'm gonna put this here. Right. So I'm gonna use quite a bit of this still, the magenta, and ooh, now I can't see it because of the glare. You guys probably can see it better than me at this point. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Yeah, something like that. It's good enough. And then we select, let's say, this dude. And I'll try it out. Oh yeah, exactly. I like this. I like this. I like it. So we are basically painting little lines here, alright? And I already know where I'm painting these. I'm painting them where I already painted the highlights before, but now I'm just covering less of an area with them. Something like this, and I can also do edge highlights on the edges. At least the ones facing up. Right. So, and then we can do it from the other side, make it more like fabric, longer, like so. This doesn't need to be the thinnest for now, because I'm gonna do the thinnest later. I'm not trying to be super precise for now, at least. Huh? Oh, see where this is going? I think it's gonna be cool. Okay. Get this side. Okay, this is not the best because of the seam. It's annoying. We're just gonna do the edge highlight first. Okay. Maybe I should have gone with a slightly smaller brush, actually. Huh? Oh. It's kind of like scratches, and it's gonna look much better once I apply more layers with them. Oops, that was a bit too much. And for now, I just want to give this impression that this is not a smooth thing, not just fabric, like not just like silk or something, right? It's a bit more rough than that. Maybe I'm going too far now. I have to calibrate it a little bit, like so. And then we are going to do like this. On the edge, you can kind of just do regular highlights. Huh? See? It is a bit more tricky than than doing just a normal highlight here. But it will also look more interesting for sure. Then the other thing is that by doing this, you create texture on this, and then we can do the green armor really smooth, right? And then there's going to be obviously a color difference between them, but there's also going to be a difference in texture, and that will help differentiate basically the two materials from each other. It's not just like all the same material, but one of them is purple, the other one is green. But it's also like one of them is clearly something else, right? One of them is smooth, so it's ceramite, because it's Space Marines. But the other one is a rough woven fabric or something like that. And I could definitely be more precise here, but yeah, not going for a competition level paint job here. Just a little hint of added effort. Right? Like so. Okay. Looks pretty cool. So I'm getting absorbed. I'm not talking as much because now this is becoming a little bit more difficult to do properly. I'm already not doing it as nicely as I would want to, and as I would probably without the stream going, but I guess I'm gonna get used to that at some point. Like so. This is just really rough texturing, and I don't care if I hit the pauldron next to it too much, because I will have to repaint it anyway. Like so. I'm going to make this a bit more solid. Same. We're going to hold it like that. Okay. So. Okay. And then you can be a bit fancy, and you can just kind of glaze over some parts. Like for example here, I'm just gonna glaze over because it's gonna be darker, but not that much. You can also glaze over certain parts, like for example here, like so, just to integrate them a little bit more. I'm just taking less of the same color, right? Like this. And I'm always dragging it from the darker towards the lighter area. Or at least making sure that I always finish in the lighter, finish the brush stroke in the lighter part of the element, basically where I want the light to be. See, it's already a little bit less obvious that there is texture, and that's fine for this first layer. I don't want to be super obvious, just a hint of texture. Let's take a look at another one next to it, and then we'll do the back side as well. So, see? Oops, sword. I think it's pretty obvious where we're going with this. Next time we're going to make it thinner, and even brighter and more yellow, right? Inside this one that we are painting right now, and that will make it much more textured and cloth-like. But first, we are going to have to do it here as well. That sounded like my wife was texting me again. Let me check. Oh, no, that's not true. Somebody else was. Hi from Spain. Hello there. We had somebody from Poland and now somebody from Spain. That's cool. Europeans, I guess, being awake, unlike the American side of my viewership. There is quite a few Americans watching my channel, but I guess those guys are now mostly asleep. Or maybe, oh, they're getting up right now, right? Depending on the time zone. Okay. We're just catching here a little bit. How do we do this? I think it's gonna be like, because the light is coming from this side, we're still gonna paint this kind of like that. You see here I'm even less thin because this is a light surface. There's going to be a lot more smaller scratches later on, so if I make them super thin right now, that doesn't make much sense. It will just get covered. For now I just want basically this rough cross-hedged pattern that will give this idea that there is some kind of fabric here. Okay, I definitely don't want smooth brush strokes, because that kind of goes against what we want to achieve here. Okay. 9:25 on the East Coast, yeah. My voice is a little low. Okay, that's good to know. I can increase that. Oh, give me a second, let me just see what I'm doing. Okay, so I don't want to increase it too much because you guys are going to get scared. But there we go, now I increased it a little bit. Let's see if this is better. Okay. Oh, we're going to be like this. It seems that the notifications are working. So I set it up in a way that if somebody subscribes, obviously that goes for the entire channel, not just the stream. So if you subscribe to the YouTube, if you do a super chat or something like that, supposedly those notifications are going to pop up. But well, we won't know until somebody does, I guess. But now I just saw somebody subscribing, so I guess that works. And it seems that obviously the chat also works, which is great. Better, awesome. That's great. Thank you very much, John, for letting me know. That actually is really helpful right now. The thing is, if I was playing a game, like a PC game or something, and I was streaming, I would have headphones on, and I would actually be able to check myself. But right now I don't have that luxury, right? Because then I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be comfortable. That's one thing, and then the other thing is that I wouldn't be able to get the glasses, the magnifying glasses on. So I forgo the headphones and hope for the best, basically. Yo, Ph3lan, love your bits. That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. Okay. Now see, this is just the first guy. I'm not sure how far we're going to get on this first day. I wanted to finish the ropes, or at least get close to it. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that, because that's going to take like, not sure how many hours on these three guys. I could do it easily on one guy, but because we are painting three of them at the same time, it might be a bit tricky, but we will get to where we get to, I guess. Right? Okay. So, in spots where the light would really need to be strong, I will add more overlapping patterns. They cover more overall. And this is the trick by the way, like you can use the patterns, and the more you overlap them, the more solid the highlight is gonna become in that spot, right? So you can just make things darker by not adding that many scratches in that spot. And you can make things obviously brighter by adding more scratches, which is kind of cool. Like so. So basically what I'm doing is I'm holding the brush like this, right? So I'm holding it really close to the bristles, and so that I have control. And then I brace on something solid like this, right? And then I calibrate it in a way that the tip of the brush is the only thing that actually touches the surface, and I just do it basically this way. I'm just like dragging it towards myself. That's also very important. Don't try to do it like this, because that's not going to work. Try it in a way that you always drag the brush towards you and apply small amount of pressure, so that you don't allow the entire brush like to actually touch the surface. You only allow that very tip to touch the surface. That's how you do these little sketches. Will you have a scheduled live stream or post a schedule somewhere? Yes. So this is the first stream only, and I'm a little bit, well, I'm just testing out stuff a little bit for now. But once I have a better handle on this, like how this actually works and how I can do it, like how long I can do it, how many streams I can actually commit to, in a way. I don't want to commit to something that I won't be able to deliver on, right? But as soon as I do that, as soon as I have a better understanding of these things, I will definitely do a schedule. What I can tell you is, for now at least, I think this Thursday schedule is the most likely, because that kind of works with my video release schedule. So most likely I'm going to be doing the initially at least the streams on Thursdays. And for now I'm fairly sure that I can do at least 2 per month, but I want to hopefully go up higher to something like 3 per month or 4 per month even. And if I'm really comfortable with it, we can increase it even further if you guys really like them. If not, obviously not. We shall see, right? But I think it's a cool way to paint stuff, and I actually get some hobby time in, even more than usual. And I still get to paint something that later I can also show off on YouTube, and you guys can say that, hey, you were there and that was painted, right? Okay, I should probably stop fiddling with this one model, and I should go on to the next one, because this one is basically done for now, for this layer, right? Okay, not bad, not bad. Maybe, sorry, like here from this angle, I think he needs a little bit more love. I'm just gonna do it lazily, like normal highlights. And then what you could also do is you could just, once again, glaze like this, because that integrates everything without really obscuring them. Like so. Okay, cool. Cool. Somehow I also have this feeling that it would be better if the live chat would be not in the corner, because I can see that YouTube puts the logo on there. So maybe I can change that and move this, give me a sec, a little bit further up, maybe like here. That logo is not in the way. You guys tell me if that's better. Right, like that. Okay, let's move on to the next model. And by the way, I can actually show you the difference once again. So this one is painted with the scratches, this one is not. Right? So slowly building it up is the way to go. At least the way I like to go. Okay. Alright. So I'm gonna mix a little bit more of this highlight color, adding a little bit of the yellow. Like that. And then we can start doing the thing. Oh, maybe I need a little bit more yellow. Like that. Like, once again, if you are not, even if you are painting for army painting, I don't think you should be worried about exact ratios and stuff like that. I have an ultramarine army that looks pretty damn cohesive, even though every single, well, not every single, but like every third model at least is painted in a different color scheme. Obviously they are all blue, but they're using different colors. Like some from Vallejo, some from AK, some from Citadel. Some of them are shaded with red colors, some of them are in the old ways, you know, just like darker blues. But once they are next to each other, they are pretty damn cohesive. Right, so I don't feel the need, like, I know that a lot of people are afraid of mixing paints because, oh god, what if it's a little bit different than the one that I used on the other guy. Personally, I never felt that that's an issue. That's why this is okay to do, I think, and it doesn't really matter in the end. Like, believe me, that in the end, even though maybe this one is slightly brighter than the one I used on the other guy, it doesn't really matter. By the end, it's gonna look exactly the same, or very, very close. There's just one fear that everybody seems to have, and I'm not sure why. Do some edge highlights here, and I'm going to add a little bit of connecting things here between the darker thing and the lighter one. Okay. I'm going to try to go a bit faster than on the other guy. Don't have to wait so much for the next stage to happen. Like on the top here, I'm not even going to bother too much with the sketches because that's gonna definitely be lighter. There's going to be a lot more lighter scratches overlapping that anyway. But even if you overlap, even if you paint over a certain area, if you have a texture under it, most of the time, because it's acrylic paints, it's still gonna show up, right? So it's not, I know that also a lot of people say like, oh, but why did you even paint the thing? Because now you painted over it. Well, even if I painted over it, maybe I just painted over it fully because with that underpainting, the new layer actually became brighter. Maybe it's not completely obscuring, and maybe it actually creates a different tone, right? Because there was something, I don't know, yellow under it, and now I painted something relatively opaque, but still a tiny bit transparent. And now that yellow can be seen, and that modifies what I did. The way, I mean, I think it's obvious to anybody that if you paint over something white, it's going to be very different than if you paint over something black, right? And the same way, other colors can also have an impact like this. Like, for example, if you paint over red and use a blue, that can actually cause very interesting things and can look really cool. So just because I covered something doesn't mean that whatever I covered was meaningless, right? Is what I'm trying to say, because that's another common thing that I even heard it from from one of my coworkers and friends who was also into this. He was constantly asking me like, yeah, but you covered, like, you did it so nicely, like for example this purple, right? It's like, oh, it's a nice coverage, and now you ruined it because you painted over it. And I was like, yeah, but I could cover it easily again if I wanted to. It's not that big of a deal. And it's not like it was completely useless. It served its purpose. Purpose being that it allowed me to go brighter and to now have a shadow color under my brighter coat. Right? It's still serving a purpose. Okay, I'm going really fast here. So this is actually one of the reasons I'm kind of curious if this whole streaming thing is something that you guys are gonna like, because obviously this is not gonna be fast, right? It's like, sure, if I tried army painting, maybe it would be somewhat fast, but if you actually want to paint something relatively nice, that will take some time, and it's also gonna take I think multiple sessions, quite a few of them, right? Because for example, this dude, let's see, this guy has the purple that I'm painting right now, but obviously he also has the cream colored robes, the green armor, the red, sorry, not red, the yellowish gold non-metallic metal, a little bit of white, I think, on the pauldrons, the emblems, and what else? And the swords, at least. And some leather, because it's a space marine, so it has holsters and stuff like that, of course. So there's plenty of stuff. Oops, I went a bit too far with the yellow, I think. No problem, I can add a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. Ooh, there we go, something like that. So this is gonna take a little bit to paint, and I'm curious if people will be along for the ride or not. Alright? What you guys tell me, because hopefully this will be useful. Again, the gems of the live stream is the free-form thought stream. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. I'm just wondering if people will appreciate it and find it helpful enough. So it's gonna take, or if it's gonna be worth the effort in a sense. We shall see. But there's one more thing I think about streams, which is cool, and I think that was kind of missing from the channel a little bit, and that's more interaction, right? Because so far, when I was doing gameplay streams, when I was young, let's just say, there was a lot of opportunity for interacting with people who were watching. But just with YouTube videos and painting, I didn't really have that much opportunity to talk to you guys. Like Discord gave me a little bit more, but it's still not as big. And this way, actually, I can talk to you guys, and you can ask me stuff, and I can share more of my opinions and things with you, and like give you a better insight into why I do things the way I do, I suppose. So I hope that this is gonna be a good platform for that as well, possibly. Okay. I'm thinking that maybe what we're going to do to speed this up a little bit is that I'm gonna jump much higher in brightness with the next set of highlights, and then we are going to use the airbrush to shade it. Or maybe I shouldn't worry about the time and just take my time. Who knows? I need a little bit more there. Oops. Not what I wanted. Okay. So we're getting there with the second dude as well. Can I just also point out that Dark Angels are really cool. The way they look. I really don't like them as a legion, don't hold it against me, but maybe that's just because I never actually liked their stories in the Horus Heresy. But the models are really cool, that's for sure. It would definitely not be my first choice for an army, just because I don't have that much of a connection to them, but holy crap, they look nice. Love your videos, waiting for your review of Pro Acryl. So that's gonna come next Friday. And I'm a bit worried about that one, to be honest. So just to give you guys a little bit of insights, I don't want to spoil it too much, but I can tell you that I didn't like it. I'm going to explain more in that video. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be upset with me for not liking it, but it's still a fact. I don't like that paint range. At least, so I only had the basic paint set, and that obviously just gives me a limited amount of paints, but it's still, I think, it's a good sample, basically, right? It's a good sample, not maybe necessarily a good sample size, but it gave me a good understanding of what the range is about. I didn't have any metallic paints, I only had normal paints, but that suits me actually because I don't really like metallic paints, as you guys probably know. And I really gave it a try, and I think I painted something really, really nice with it that turned out really good, and yet I didn't like it. I'll tell you why. Well, exactly, John. Ph3lan's Uncontrollable is one of the reasons, or two of the reasons rather, why I didn't like it, and there are a couple of others, but yeah. I must say though, like really, that their customer support and the people I was interacting with, because I actually reached out to them, right? Like there were so many people telling me that, oh, you have to try Pro Acryl after that video that I did about my favorite paint ranges, that I was like, okay, I need to look into this. So I found out, some people actually told me in the comments that there is a Hungarian Jesus, but I'm not Hungarian, not not so close, but European distribution now of the paints. There is basically a website where you can order it in Europe, and I reached out to them, and they were super nice. Seriously, possibly the nicest I have ever interacted with in this scene, so to say. And they sent me something almost instantly. Like, I basically told them, hey, I made this video, I have this channel, and I would really love to try out your paints, because all my audience was basically clamoring for it. Mostly, I suppose, my American viewers, because it seems to me, at least, that Pro Acryl is extremely popular in the States. So they sent me something basically the next day, and I had it in 3 days. So I really need to give props to them for that. But at the same time, I also can't lie. And then I'm not going to say more. Like, watch the video. It's gonna come out next Friday, if everything goes according to plan. Alright, so I'm gonna glaze just a little bit to make this nicer, like so. And then we can move on to the third guy. And somebody said that while I'm, I like to watch streams while I'm painting, because while normal YouTube stuff requires the whole attention, while streams are slower, so I can focus on painting and look on screen time to time. That makes a lot of sense. I hope this is gonna be suitable for that as well. Okay. What brand are you using on this model? The purple is very vibrant. It's Ionic. And the purple is also very vibrant because I make it very vibrant by adding yellow to it, by the way. It wouldn't be that vibrant if I added white. But in general, Ionic paints are very vibrant out of the tube, or out of the bottle. I can show you if you have not seen the beginning of the stream that for now we are going to, or we are using these colors combined, right? These are the ones that I'm using on these models. Okay. Oh, we're going to, oh, I always forget about this little bit here. Not sure why. Like so. Okay. But I'm really like, I'm bummed out a little bit about not liking Pro Acryl because they were so nice and because so many of my viewers like it. I'm actually surprised about that as well. Like, maybe after the video is out, somebody can explain to me why they like it so much. Because I honestly think, like, I have a lot of experience nowadays with a lot of different brands. So I painted like individual models and I mean individual projects with various different brands, like using only those brands, but I also used a combination of them. I used a lot of different colors, right? And I like Green Stuff World as well, which is a very, very thin paint. And I have zero issues with it. I just realized that it's not the best for edge highlighting, but it's really good for a lot of other stuff. And yet, so that's why I thought that Pro Acryl is gonna definitely be something that I will like. And yet somehow I don't. But, well, that's how it is. Okay, so now we have two of these guys highlighted and this color, and then there is this guy, this dude on the right, who is not highlighted yet. Just to give you an idea. Ugh, try to turn. It's difficult to turn with one finger. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to do the third companion as well. So I'm gonna mix some more paint. Like so. Okay.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Oh, Alexa actually got triggered by that. Not sure why. Interesting. I use Alexa for my lights in the room, and sometimes she just decides to butt in a little bit into the conversation, it seems. Not sure if you guys could hear that, probably you could. Maybe that's actually a good idea to turn Alexa off while I'm painting, because somebody might just trigger it. Give me a sec. So. It's nice of her to remind me. Personally, I like Pro Acryl because they go on very smooth and cover really well. Their white is the best white I've ever used. Says Strawhead Leon. Okay, Leon. Sorry, I was like, how do I read that that name? So that's an interesting comment. In terms of acrylic miniature brand paints, anyway. I really don't want to go into the thing because the video is going to explain it, but I have to disagree with you on that one. In terms of coverage and smoothness, specifically. I don't feel the same. Like, just out of curiosity, what other brands do you use? So what are you comparing it to? I'm wondering. Because I have a theory why people think that Pro Acryl is covering well and is smooth. But I think it's because of what other paints these people, or like the people who think so, use right now. I might be wrong. I'm like absolutely willing to admit that this might not be the reason, but yeah. I love Chimera and Schminke Prime Acryl. I don't know that one. Sounds like a German brand, something like that. But Chimera is I like Chimera as well for specific things. I should probably do a review for those paints as well. I used to use them. I still use them occasionally. I have a lot of them. It's just that the main thing is that they are very vibrant, but they are not that much vibrant than, for example, this. like Ionic, but they cover way worse, and they're much more difficult to work with than for example this paint. But I still like it. You can actually paint really cool, really vibrant paint jobs with them. Give me a sec, I'm gonna paint a little bit more and then I'm gonna read what you said. Because I still wanna go at least one step above this, or even higher, with these ropes. And actually, there's a question I have for you guys as well, for those who are watching, and maybe like if somebody is watching after this, I suppose they can also leave comments in the, or like their thoughts in the comments. So do you prefer if I paint the same project for multiple sessions? So that would mean possibly like it takes like a month for me to paint something fully on a stream. Or do you prefer if I continue painting these minis? Maybe maybe the next stream is gonna be like you joining in when I am painting the, I don't know, the next element while I already finished this one. You know, like basically I would make jumps in what I do in between streams. Or do you want me to like continue painting and like I do every single thing on the stream? Which one would be better? Because one allows you to see the whole process basically in real time with my commentary, but the other one allows you to see a lot more different projects, right, if I jump between them. So which one would you like? Well, let's see what Joel said. In the States, ProAcryl has the best customer service as well. Yeah, absolutely. Many companies could learn from Monument Hobbies, but it like the entire range was created for wet blending and glazing, not base layer. Absolutely, I completely agree. I like ProAcryl more than Citadel, Vallejo, and Army Painter, but I do also use old P3 too thin coats and AK, and I like all of those too. Yes, same projects, multiple sessions. Okay, cool. From start to finish. Okay, it seems like most people agree that they want to see the same project. Cool. So I like ProAcryl more than Citadel, Vallejo, or Army Painter. Interesting, because so I would say that all of those cover better than ProAcryl. Like all the ones that you listed, right? And most of those actually cover better because they have a lot more added white, which is not a good thing, right? Like ProAcryl in the end, once you get it to do what you want, in my experience at least, it's producing really nice colors. I can absolutely say that. Unlike some of these others that you mentioned. Like for example, Army Painter, as far as I know, has a lot of white in it. AK has quite a bit of white in it. And Citadel is also not the most vibrant range, right? So I'm wondering why, like maybe it's just the selection of paints I had or something, but the ones that I had definitely do not cover better than any of those brands. I don't want to pick a fight or anything. I'm just like, I was really surprised when I started painting with those paints, and I realized that like even though people say they cover really well, like I had specific expectations about how those paints would behave, right? It's like based on what people told me, and they were very different from what I imagined. It's surprising. Okay, it seems that everybody agrees. One mini from A to Z, please, or Z. Okay, yeah, actually that suits me better as well, to be perfectly honest. I think that makes more sense to me, but I was wondering if people prefer it one way or the other. Okay. I love it. If ProAcryl, oh sorry, I have to actually look at this. If ProAcryl took the DR naming convention, it would be called 5 thin coats on the entire line, and they are all like that. Yeah, but that's. It seems that John and me had very similar experiences with that line. Like, okay, I just can't resist. You guys are making me divulge things. Like, for example, I started painting, right? And I painted on the first coat, just like I did here with the initial purple. And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna add the second coat. And I was waiting for the first to dry, and it just didn't dry. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what is happening here? I used the same kind of amount of paint, so it's not like I flooded the surface or something. You know, I think I know how to base coat something. And I was like following the instructions that they shared with me, and which was basically the same that you would do for green stuff world paints, where you really don't need to and you don't want to add a lot of moisture to the paint. But I was using it from a wet palette, by the way. And then I had to realize that now I get it. Now I understand why some of the American streamers, or like streamers, YouTubers mostly, I saw that they use a hairdryer sometimes between layers. And then I saw also somebody using the airbrush, just blasting air at the mini. And I never understood why, because I never had this need, right, to do this, because usually by the time I finish one layer, like all over the model or across multiple models even, where I started, it's dry, right? So it's not an issue. You just don't wanna like focus on one area mostly too much. But that was not the case here. So I was like, okay, let's do that. I took the airbrush, blasted some air, and well, it actually worked. It dried. But you shouldn't have to do that. Like, no other paint makes me need like an airbrush to dry stuff, or maybe even like a hair dryer. Jesus Christ, I don't have a hair dryer next to my desk. So I was really surprised about that, but I just had to do it because I was painting a single model, and I would have had to wait ages to continue painting, which is interesting. I will add, I don't start from black undercoats, I do zenithal. Yeah, I can see that would help for sure. But I tried that as well, and it's still not, like, once again, I'm not picking a fight, really, sorry. Like, obviously we all have different expectations. That's the thing with mini paints as well. Everybody has a different style, and they like different things. So and maybe my style is actually really not meshing well with that paint range, because I like to do textures, I like to do this kind of stuff, right, which is difficult with ProAcryl because it's not it's difficult to get it to the consistency that allows me to do this. You can do it, but it takes some time. Whereas paints like AK and Ionic, right from the bottle, they work like this. And just like John said, it seems that line was made with wet blending in mind. But, and this might be controversial again. Oh my god, I'm doing a stream and I'm already being controversial. So I don't think wet blending is a good idea on 32mm minis. Sure, you can. There is a sense in wet blending for bigger minis, like bigger figures, like busts, for example. There might be really big, interesting surfaces that you could paint like that. But I just never understood why. And once again, I was looking at certain streams and YouTube videos, and people were doing wet blending. And initially, when I started painting, I thought that wet blending is a thing you need to learn, and it's a very important and very, very, very useful technique for a mini painter. But well, right now, with my current experience, I would say it's not. It's absolutely not a useful technique. At least not a very useful technique. Sometimes there is a use for it, but with good paints, like made for mini painting, you should not have to rely, basically, that's what I'm trying to say. You should not have to rely on wet blending to blend stuff together, right? But there are certain paint ranges that kind of feel like they were meant to be wet blended, and I think ProAcryl is one of those. Oh, this thing actually wants to come off the base, which is annoying. Yeah. But I guess that's also a matter of style, because maybe some painters like that. Why is this coming off? Oh, there's nothing much to latch onto at the bottom of the base, right? I suppose. Okay. So yeah, but what do you guys think? Like, do you get like whoever is using ProAcryl and likes ProAcryl, do you guys do wet blending? Is that it? Like, do you like that particular aspect of the paint range, or is it something else? If you ever watch the live streams, you would understand that the paint was developed around the owner's style, which is very glaze oriented. He's a great guy with a unique style. Yeah, that makes sense. It feels like a very bespoke paint, if that makes sense. Like I got that. It's not a bad paint. Like that was also pretty obvious to me. It's not like it's bad. It's just, it's very specific, right? It requires you to paint in a very specific style. So that being made around the owner's preferences makes a lot of sense to me. But I would also say that, and I'm gonna say this in the video as well, I think, is that I don't think I would ever recommend ProAcryl as a beginner's paint, right? It's just very, very difficult, especially so the basic techniques that you want to use for miniature painting, which is like edge highlights, for example, base coats, especially in the beginning, basic layering. Those things are much more difficult with paints like that, right? And that's that kind of sucks in a way when you get a paint like that and you want to follow instructions where they say, no, edge highlight, and you're like, okay, but this thing just flows. So how do I edge highlight something with something that flows like an ink, right? It's difficult. Okay. The thing is, like what John is saying, that but thicker than normal glazes, like thin transparent layers. So that's how I like to do it. Like, look at this. Like, for example, like this. That's actually not the right one. Let's go with this. So this is a thin transparent layer, right? That allows me to basically modify this a little bit and integrate it like so. Like a glaze should not be super thin. Like this is how it should be, basically, like this. So it almost looks like it covers, right? But it doesn't, at least not fully. It covers more where I let it pool in the end, like here, right? And yeah, sure, you can do that. You can do that with ProAcryl and it will work. There is a problem, is that it's gonna take ages for it to dry. Look at how fast this dries. It dries almost in real time. But when I tried this with ProAcryl, it's just not drying. It frustrated me, to be perfectly honest. Like, see, this is a glaze, right? Like, for example, here I can make it more covery. Like, see, like this, but and you can feather it out if you want, like so. And this is a glaze, this is not a layer, but I mean, you can call it whatever you want, basically, right? Like, I'm not sure where the where you draw the line between a layer and the layer paint and the glaze paint, or like a layer consistency and the glaze consistency. I know that somebody, like, for example, I think, who was it? Somebody has this like system where they say that it's like a level 2 glaze or a level 3 glaze. I think it's one of the Spanish painters, and that's a cool idea. I think it's really difficult to put this into words because you usually don't use this very specific consistency. You are just like something like that, Like for example, look, I'm doing this, and I'm adding a little bit of moisture to it, and now it's like a level 2 glaze, right? Like so. But then I do this, and now it's a layer, something like that, right? It's difficult to describe. That's one of the problems actually to describe these things in words, because the difference is so intangible. It's very difficult to actually put it into words, I think. Maybe for native English speakers it's easier, I don't know. But not in my experience. Like when you watch streamers, I think everybody struggles to, once again, not streamers necessarily, but YouTubers, everybody struggles to really describe how to do this. It's really easy once you know how to do it. It's really difficult to describe to somebody who has not figured it out yet. That's the problem. Right? Okay, so, but we managed to get there, and this is how the boys look after this layer, right? Or after this step. Cool. Okay, now we are going to once again cleanse the brush. Or maybe just clean, not cleanse, but never mind. Something like this. It's just very important to get all the paint out and make sure that you shape the bristles before you put it down, because once again I want to switch to an even smaller brush, because now we are really doing textures. Like, sorry, you can't actually see what I'm doing, like here. Some dry paint. Like that, you can shape the bristles. Like that, and now you can leave it to dry. There we go. All right, so where are we at? Let's see. Okay, so I think we can paint for like 45 minutes or so more, which allows me to add one more layer to these guys, hopefully. All right, that's the plan at least. Just curious, what brand of brush are you using? Okay, so these brushes, I think I actually said this in the beginning, but not everybody was here. So these are golden maple brushes. They recently sent these to me, and some of them are like this, like they have this wedge shape, like so, and some of them have this like normal rounded shape. So these are sable brushes. I think it says here sable. They're really nice. This is a Chinese company. I have never used their brushes before. They were very confident about the quality of their brushes, and I have to say, I agree. The quality of their brushes is really, really, really nice. This is the box that they came in. This is not even an advert. They are not paying me anything. They sent me this box to try out for now. I really like it. But the other type of brush that I really like is Green Star World Golden Series. This is also sable brush, Siberian Kolinsky, as you can see here. For example, this is really small, 00. I like those. But the other thing I really like is Abteilung 502, which is also Marta Kolinsky. Yeah, so these are the brushes that I usually use for actual details, right? And then for like big stuff, like stuff that doesn't really need specific details, I usually just use whatever I have at hand, usually something like older, or maybe a synthetic brush as well. I think that most Kolinsky brushes are going to be fine. What I like is the ones that are longer. I know that there is, I'm not sure if I have an example here. Yeah, for example, this one. This is a really old Da Vinci brush, and it's kind of dirty as well. But see, this is like this is really small, and not just small in terms of like how thin it is, but it's also really short. Maybe this is not the best example for this. I think there is the... Give me a sec. Oops. Ah yeah, here. There's an artist opus brush here that I don't like to use. See, this is like very short but kind of thick compared to how short it is. I'm not a big fan of these for mini painting, honestly. I don't really have much use of this, but you only find this out once you painted with it, right? I like longer brushes, and for at least the ones that are bigger than this, for example, it's nice if they have a little bit of a belly, but not too much. That's also, I guess, a personal preference, but definitely longer and sharp point brushes. That's the idea. Okay. So now, with my ionic paints, AK paints, I can always control the consistency to be more thin. I can work in the other direction, making PA thicker. Yes, so that's the problem with Greenstock World paints to a certain extent as well. You can control actually to a certain extent, once again, in the other direction as well. You can do it by removing the moisture from, you know what I'm going to, while I'm talking at least. I'm going to do this so that you guys can see me a little bit. So you can control it the other way, and the way you control it the other way is, let me show you. So basically, how do I do this? I'm gonna do that like here. So let's say that I am going to take this. This is ionic, but we are going to make it thinner, like so, right? So now it's a bit difficult to edge highlight with something like this, right? Because this is, see, it kind of flows like an ink, right? But if I do this a couple of times, I can actually control it much better. See? So basically, normally what you do is that you leave a little bit of water in the bristles, right? And then you take the paint, you do this, and if the paint is the right consistency, like ionic, then you basically just do this, right? It's like, you see that this is not pooling, right? But if I do the same thing, I leave a little bit of water in there, I take this, and oops, now it's just flowing, see? So what you can do is you just basically remove all the moisture from the brush before you load it up with this thing. And once you loaded it up, you also do this on the paper towel. Unfortunately, that removes a lot of the paint as well. And then you can actually, see, once again, paint thin lines with it. Obviously, this is a paper towel, you're not going to be precise with it, but still you can see the difference between this and that, right? So this is the way to control it the other direction, but it's much more difficult and much more limited in how much you can control it in this direction where you want to make it thicker, right? It's not even making it thicker, it's just making it less watery in a sense, right? And that allows you to paint stuff with it that otherwise you wouldn't be able to, but this is much more difficult to do and much more limited, in my experience at least, than how much you can work with the paint when you can water it down, right? Because you can just use the paint right from the bottle, you can use the paint just with the wet palette soaking up a certain amount of, or like the paint soaking up from the wet palette a certain amount of moisture, or you can leave a certain amount in the brush. And I know that some people actually add water to the paint, which I never do. Like I don't, you know, I don't do this, where basically like I'm adding like this. Like there is no need for that. You basically do it every time you load it up the brush. You don't pre-thin the paint, if that makes sense. At least that's the way I do it. But for example, Richard Gray, I think, is a good example of somebody who, at least on his videos and streams, he actually pre-thins the paint. which I would never do. And he's a great painter, he's much better than me, so, you know, like, there's not one way of doing it, basically. Alright, that was my little tangent about paint, which we are probably going to do a lot more in the future, because there's a lot to be said about paint consistency. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, this time we are going to only use, oh sorry, I'm going to turn this off. I think I actually recorded a lot more than I wanted to, and then we're going to start recording again, like so. And now you can see me with the dorky glasses as well. So let's fix that. Yeah, there we go. So this time we're just going to use magenta and light golden flesh, right? Like so. And we don't need the original purple anymore. I want to go relatively high in brightness now, because I think we can get away with it, and we can just shade it down later. At least that's what I'm banking on. I'm going to add only magenta here, because I don't want to mix in the purple now, and I still have a lot of golden flesh here, so I'm just gonna take some of that, and I'm gonna do something like this. Ooh, that's really bright. That's really bright. So maybe I'm actually still going to add some more. Never mind. Let's do it like this. So we are still going to add some purple. We just add a lot more yellow, or light golden flesh in this case, right? So sometimes you have to make adjustments as you start using the paint. There we go, there we go. That's much more like it. That's much more like it. Okay, something like this. Okay, that's kind of what we are going for right there. Okay. Okay, let's see how this goes. Yeah, that's perfect actually. But if I use this, I guess that's fine. So if I use this, there's going to be one more layer that we need to do. So this is not gonna be enough. But here's the thing, like every time you do this, you have to go smaller, less and less surface to cover, right? So technically, mostly, every consecutive layer is going to be a little bit faster to paint. Right? So the first big highlights are going to take more time, but then, because you see now I'm covering much less of a surface, but I'm also using much thinner lines to do it. And like here is a good example actually, like this technique, what I'm using right now, this scratchy thing that I'm doing, this requires a very specific paint dilution, which is not a glaze for sure. It's kind of like a layer consistency in a sense. It has to flow from the brush easily, otherwise you're just going to make smudges, not lines, right? The ideal scenario is when it kind of makes perfectly nice thin lines. You don't necessarily have to always do it perfectly, but something like that. And this consistency is much thicker than what you get from something like Pro-Acryl or from even Greenstock World. So now you have to work for it. You have to try to make it thicker out of the box or out of the tube or whatever. Whereas this is almost the same consistency that you would be using for normal layering from AK, from Ionic or something, right? So right out of the box, once again I'm saying out of the box, but out of the tube or bottle, you get paint, and then you just leave a little bit of moisture in the brush, and you already have the right consistency for something like this, right? You barely have to work for it. You just have to know that this is the consistency that you need, obviously. But once you know, it's really easy to make, right? And obviously on the wet palette, it's also drying on me a little bit. just a little bit, depending on your wet palette, like how, for example, here I have air conditioning right now. That means that it's actually drying a lot faster than it should. But I can just do this, right? Leave a little bit of water in it, see? And every time I load up the brush, I fix the consistency of the paint, basically. Fix it to what I need. Now, if I use something super thin like PHLANS, I will spend a lot more effort trying to make this work, right? Like, it's just not meant for this kind of work. And also, unfortunately, not really for edge highlights. Like, you really need to work on edge highlights. I struggle to figure out how people who start out painting would want to use a paint like that and actually paint proper edge highlights. The frustration is going to be through the roof, probably. And that explains why so many people struggle, I think, with edge highlights, because they're not using necessarily paints that are meant for that, or that are meant to easily do that. Okay, but see where I'm going with this thing? Like, it's starting to get there, right? I think. With ProAcryl being unanimously best tasting, would you rank Ionic Smart Colors on the flavor scale? Oh, that's an awesome question. The thing is, I'm not a brush licker, believe it or not. I've never tasted any paint in my life. I wouldn't know. I know that that scale 75 the artist range, the heavy body, it smells incredible. Like, seriously, it's fantastic. I said it in the video as well. I cannot emphasize it enough. It smells fantastic. ProAcryl didn't smell anything to me, like anything to me. Ionic has a little unpleasant smell. I would say, like a little chemical, I guess. Like it's hard to describe. Something chemical, like a detergent or something without any perfume added, or something like that. But as to the taste, I can't say. I'm not sure. Like, you know, this is basically acrylic paint, right? It's probably not great for you if you eat it. It's not toxic, but it's probably also not great if you eat it. A few drops of pale yellow in your coffee in the morning is good for hangovers? Wow, okay. Not my first choice to cure hangovers, I guess. That's an interesting way. Seriously? Like, I know that a lot of people lick the brush, but I don't know. I wouldn't do that. Okay, oops. That was maybe a bit too much. Like so. So this whole thing is much trickier on the large surfaces like this. Okay. But I'm liking where this is going, actually. I think this will look pretty cool in the end. Ooh, I'm also starting to get hungry for whatever reason, even though I ate before the stream. That kind of shows you how long I've been doing this. I think it was like 2.5 hours. Yeah, crazy how fast time flies. Okay. I guess you guys are getting the idea of what I'm doing, at least, right? While we are talking about paints, like this cross-hatching kind of thing gives you the idea that this is some kind of fabric, while we are slowly going up in brightness. And we are basically, as I'm going up in brightness, I'm reducing the size of the area I'm using this cross-hatching on. Right? And this is where things become a bit trickier when the paint, like it's less paint on the palette, and it's drying out faster because there is less volume. So I have to add more water. So you have to compensate basically as you do this. You always have to take into consideration how much water is needed in the paint. And this is another thing actually. Like this is also a style issue, not a style of what you are painting, but the style of how you are painting. I think the method that you like develop for yourself, because I guess it's different for everybody. Everybody is going to have their own little moves and ways of getting things done. And if you are used to using paints like this rather, then you basically base your method around them, right? So you know that you need to add water. You know the little movements that you do, like you automatically reach for the cup, and kind of you're getting really good at judging how much paint you need to leave in the bristles and all that. That this comes all comes with experience. Not just experience painting, but experience with that specific setup that you have, and that definitely includes the paint as well, right? So then, let's say you get acclimatized, or I'm not sure how to call this, like you really get used to using something like ProAcryl or Scale 75, which is actually very similar, by the way. And then you switch over to something like Ionic. You're going to probably not like it, honestly, because it's just not gonna work the way you imagine. Like your normal moves, basically, the things that, you know, like how you get the things done, are not gonna necessarily work with different paints like that. And I think that's sometimes some of the frustration with paint in general. And maybe that's part of the frustration that I am having with ProAcryl as well, even though I didn't have that with green stuff for whatever reason. Is that my usual moveset, the things that I usually do with paints to make it behave the way I want on the Mini, they just don't work perfectly on those paints, right? They were designed for a different type of paint. It's like, imagine that you want to paint with acrylics, but somebody puts oil paints in front of you. That's gonna be very different, right? Drying time, the way you thin the paint, the way the paint behaves, like where you end your brush strokes even, and stuff like that. Like all of this is gonna be very different with oil paints. And we are just going to make it easier here, like this. And that's probably what's happening with those paints as well. Okay, so let me show you the difference between this and the previous one. So here's a Mini on the left, painted with this layer, and here's the previous one. Let me zoom in actually, because now I zoomed out a little bit too much, maybe. Here, there you go. Hydromorphy says that he's not serious about eating the paint. You might not be serious, but some other people are, I think, because I've definitely seen people like lick the brush and eat the paint. And I assume that those people actually know what the paint tastes like, right? So you might be joking, but some other people are not. Have you ever painted miniatures with oil paints? Yes. I mean, yes and no. Like, I used oil paints partially for minis. Oops, like that. I never painted a mini entirely with oil paints. Maybe I should try, but honestly, I mean, it has certain advantages for sure, but it also has a lot of disadvantages. Okay. Try to get there. There we go. Oh, no. No, definitely not. That's way too dark. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to get the right. I think I need some more medium flash here, or golden flash. Sorry. Okay. Uh-huh. Now we are getting there. Now we are getting there. Uh-huh. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. I know that a lot of people like oil paints, and it's a different style. Like Marco Frisoni, I think, is one that likes to use oil paints a lot. I like to use them for washes, but I don't really use them as paints properly. But maybe at some point I will. It's a bit too thick. There you go. This requires a little bit of patience, like doing these little scratches. Definitely taking a bit longer than just doing it with normal brush strokes. And here's another interesting thing, by the way. Sometimes it's difficult to get the brightness right. Right? Like sometimes you feel like, oh, I overdid it a little bit. But in my experience, what you can do is not worry about the brightness being too bright, just worry about it not being bright enough, if that makes sense. And the reason is because it's really, really easy to darken something down and integrate it, but it's really much more difficult to brighten something up. So that means that, especially if you have the airbrush in your collection as well, or in your arsenal, then it's actually always worth making things a little bit brighter than they should be. And a good example of this would be somebody like Sergio Calvo. Right? I actually learned a lot from watching him paint. And I know that he has a very specific style, which I really like actually. And not everybody does, but what he does all the time is that he basically just paints a lot of texture, and really bright texture sometimes, really obvious one. Way more so than what I'm doing here actually. And he doesn't care that it's bright. He actually really makes it brighter than it should be at that particular point in the painting process, right? But then he comes back and then he just glazes it with the airbrush, and at the same time darkens it down a little bit as well most of the time, up to the point where it becomes smoother. Now you can also do it the other way around, but that's very dangerous and tricky, where you basically just make the highlights, and then you finish the highlights by adding an even brighter layer and thinner layer with the airbrush. You can also do that. But in general, even if you just use brushes and you want to highlight, you can just make it so that it's a bit too bright, and then you come back with an ink or contrast paint, or even just a normal paint, a little bit watered down to a glaze consistency. and you just darken it down. And that has the added benefit, if you do it like this, that the end result is always going to be like smoother, right? Because the new color that you use to blend it together, basically, it blends together the brush strokes, the texture, whatever you did, basically, right? So this is one of the things that I like to do these days. I'm experimenting with this, basically, like how much can I get away with, because this really like makes things easier, more fun, and also faster, right? Because now you don't have to smooth everything like crazy in between layers. Like, for example, here, you don't really see me smoothing too much, because in the end what we are going to do is, I already decided, I think, now, that we are going to come back and we are going to add a couple of layers with the airbrush, just to, one, smooth things out, and two, also to darken, and three, I will add a different tone. Well, and that's a different trend that I'm not gonna go on right now, because colors and colored shadows and stuff like that is not a big thing, but basically, very short. Everything looks better if it's not a single color progression, right? So imagine that you paint blue like as ultramarines. If you paint a blue ultramarine in a way that it's just a darker blue and then a lighter blue and even lighter blue and whatnot, like you just basically use blues and constantly brightening them up, it's gonna look okay, right? It's gonna look, I guess, depending on how you do it, okay, fine. Now you introduce some red into the shadows, as you probably saw in many of my videos, and suddenly that model will look much better, right? And then you add, let's say, a little bit of yellow into the highlights, like we're doing here, actually. And oops, suddenly the model became even better. Like somehow it became more deep. Hard to describe, actually, but there is something about it that becomes more real, right? Because normal things in real life are not like a single color. Like there is no such a thing as like something is just blue, I think, at least. Obviously there is, but most things are not. Like if it's a sheet of paper that is colored blue, then it's blue. But if you start folding it, where it has shadows and everything, then suddenly it becomes a much more complex thing when it comes to not just shape and shadow and whatever, but also of color. So that's another way of doing things, right? Like you do it basically the way I do it here, where you introduce a little bit of yellow into the highlights, and then a little bit of, in our case, I think actually red is gonna go, at least something reddish, is gonna go into the shadows to darken them down further. We increase the, I went a bit too far with that. We increase the contrast by deepening the shadows compared to the highlights. We add a new tone, we smooth things out. It's basically a win-win scenario, right? But this needs a little bit of planning, right? Like you need to know that you are going to do this kind of stuff, because if you do this, then you probably make the highlights a little bit brighter than they are supposed to be in the end, because they're going to be darkened down. You are going to probably not waste time on a lot of smoothing in between layers, because you already know that at the end you are going to use the airbrush or just glazes from the brush to add more color and like smooth things out, basically. Something like that. Okay. We are getting there. And I'm also getting used to painting on the stream, I guess. I usually don't talk while I'm doing this. An interesting experience. Oops, never mind. Okay, so I have like 15 minutes that I can use to finish these guys. So this is one dude, another dude. Oops. I still need to paint this dude, right? And I need to make some changes still, a couple of refinements, let's say. What do you guys think? Do you like where this is going? Like, is this how you imagined where the stream to go and also the painting to go? Do you like this style, or do you prefer something else? Do you prefer like the more traditional Games Workshop kind of heavy metal style? It's shading and highlighting and all that. What do you think? It's funny that it's always the first model that whenever I paint 3 models, for whatever reason, the third model, the first model is always the best one. The one that I do the thing on for the first time, it's always the best. And then the second is the worst, usually. And the third one is kind of in between. And by the way, the next step, which we are not gonna do today probably, is gonna be basically very similar to what I'm doing right now, but then we are going to switch to an even smaller brush, and that's gonna be very delicate lines of almost pure yellow at the very top of the folds in the highest lights. That's what we are going to do next. I think I'm trying to go a little bit too fast now. The thing is, we have a little bit of an appointment. We need to do something together with my wife, like actually it's work related in a way, that I need to do after the stream. So I have to definitely finish at least at 5 p.m. our time, which is in 13 minutes. So I'll try to go at least that fast. Which is also a good reminder that I shouldn't go into more rants about very complex topics right now. I personally prefer traditional styles without the texture, but it's always good to learn a new technique. I like this though. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I also, most of the time I like to use more like smooth painting techniques, but at the same time sometimes you have to go out of your comfort zone, as you said. And then the other thing is that there are certain things that you just cannot do with smooth. If everything is smooth, then everything is boring in a sense, right? Like, also smooth becomes much more smooth when there is something not smooth next to it, like contrast, right? So one of the things that I try to do these days, I actually showed you guys the Azrael model in the beginning of the stream. Some of you might have seen it. Like that was me trying to imitate the style of a really good painter, Magnus. Oh, I won't remember the name exactly, but when I looked at that model that he painted, that paint job, it was very obvious. I mean, maybe it wasn't very obvious, but it was obvious once I realized that one of the things he did in that paint job was to play with different techniques, not just techniques, but different textures. Like, some things on the models were very smooth, some things were textured like this, some of them were textured like with little dots, so basically stippled, kinda. And because there were so many different things on that model, it was very, very contrasty, and not just because of the colors and brightness and whatnot, but also because of how different textured surfaces were next to each other. So for your eye, it was really easy to see where one thing ended and the next one began. And that was something that I did not really realize up until that point. I was not really using this thing consciously. Like, occasionally I was like, okay, I'm gonna paint a cape, and I'm gonna paint that cape with the texture. I tried that before, but just kind of out of context, in the sense that I only focused on the cape. I did not really consider how that cape being textured is gonna impact the rest of the stuff around it. Maybe that sounds very artsy or something, and believe me, it's not, because I'm not a very artsy guy. But it's a thing. It's definitely a thing you can see once you pay attention to it. And using this consciously is not easy. Like, I need to remind myself sometimes that I need to try and work with different textures on the models, because otherwise I go back to these traditional techniques that you mentioned, John. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it right now as well, because it will come naturally to me if I do it enough, right? But right now I need to do it consciously. I need to remind myself specifically that this is a thing that will make what I do better, if that makes sense. Is a little glazing. Okay, maybe I overdid it a little bit. Oh, maybe not. Okay, almost there. So right now, like, this is not the final form of this, right? Because once I shaded it later, once that lights are done, we are going to make this smoother. It's gonna be still textured under the smoothing layer, but it's gonna be smoother than this, right? So don't be discouraged. It's gonna look better than this in the end. Alright. Okay, a little bit here. There you go. I use this technique today. That's awesome to hear. So it's already worth doing it for me if I manage to teach it to you. Or like at least help you achieve it. Okay, so we are going to clean the brush again before doing anything else. Like so. Very important. I can't emphasize it enough. Hopefully I'm not gonna knock them all down. Okay, and let's take a look at them. Not bad. They look pretty cool. Right? The purple needs to look good on these guys, because even though they're Dark Angels and they're supposed to be green, the purple is the largest surface on these models specifically. So this needs to be good. This needs to really be the eye catcher on these guys. Right? So it needs to be nice and colorful and interesting. All right, so I think that's how far we can get today. I hope you guys got something out of this stream. Let me know what you thought about it, what needs to be changed, what you liked. Do I need to actually increase the volume on something? Do I need to change the graphics or anything like that? And then, as I said, this is going to be available to people who subscribe to the commander level. And the next stream I'm going to announce soon. I think I will have a think about when the next one should be. Next week after, most likely on Thursday, but I will get you guys more info very soon on Discord and on Patreon, right? And for those who were here, thank you very much, guys, for being here and being a really nice audience and asking really cool questions, which allowed me to go on my little rants, and I hope that you got the answers that you wanted. I actually really enjoyed this stream, and I hope we can do more. But for now, I'm going to go and do the job that I need to do with my wife. And see you guys next time. Thank you very much.